Welcome to The Next Best Thing. I'm your host, Andrea Cline-Thomas. Now, this is a podcast about creating strategies to navigate career and life transitions. And like we like to say around here, a pivot and a plan B are not required. Now, if you've been keeping up with the podcast, I've been really talking about having a next boot camp of sorts, where we're not just bringing you stories about incredible people, we're really breaking down what it takes to get to your next. And today we're talking about what our guest likes to call a cliff jump. Now, she's Brandice Daniel, the CEO and founder of Harlem's Fashion Row, a movement, truly a movement that's increased diversity in the fashion industry. And she's going to talk a lot more about that. You may have recognized in the last few years that you could go to Macy's and Bloomingdale's, even Target, and you can see more Black designers or multicultural brands. Chances are Brandice had a hand in getting that ball rolling. So Brandice, I'm super excited that you're here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me here. And I love the introduction and the fact that we're going to get into tactical things on this call, on this podcast.
Yeah, because I think that a lot of people, they see people and they feel distance. Like, I couldn't do that. I couldn't be there. And it's just like, no, the only difference is a strategy and a plan and action behind it.
Yes.
Right?
That's it.
Yeah. And so let's start with cliff jumps. What does that actually mean?
Yeah, it means taking an action towards the thing that you want, no matter how you feel, how underqualified you feel, what experience you have. But it's about really removing some of the barrier that we have in order to take a move forward and actually going for it. And the reason I say cliff jump is because when you're at the edge of the cliff, you feel all the butterflies, your chest hurts, and then you take that jump into the water, and it's so exciting. And so when you're getting ready to take action on your dream, it feels a lot like that.
Mm-hmm. It really does. And I've been watching your career from afar for many years, and you've taken multiple, because this is not a one-time thing. You take one,
No.
then you have to take another, and then another,
No,
and then another,
it's
right?
Constant.
And so let's start from what I've seen as one of your big, it's not your first clearly, but moving to New York City from Memphis to enter the fashion industry, right? So I used to live in Nashville, right? And so, Tennessee is a long ways away from New York City in a lot of different ways. And then the fashion industry, especially then, was insular, was keeping people out, was, something they perfected, quite frankly. And then here you are, a woman from Memphis saying, I'm going to go to New York City. And because I have this love of fashion, tell me about what was inside of you at that time that said, you know what, let me go ahead and pursue this.
Yeah, I remember I was actually, I believe, a junior in college, and a friend of mine had come to New York, and I had always thought about New York and thought I wanted to move there. But she had actually come here for weeks. And when she was telling me her experience of the city, I kept saying, I knew it was like that. I knew it. I just knew it. And so it literally gave me a fire. I have to move there one day. And I was probably 19 or 20 at the time. And so I started telling everyone, I'm moving to New York. I'm moving to New York. I'm moving to New York. Now, I didn't move directly to New York after college. I moved to Atlanta for a little while, and then I had to move back to Memphis when my job closed there. And so it wasn't until I was 28 that I moved here, but I never stopped saying it. I think the first thing you can do when you're thinking about a cliff jump is actually say the thing. Now, most people will tell you, don't share your dreams with people. I'm not saying you should share every dream with people, but I do think that some things you have to start saying even before you feel it or before there's any possibility of it happening, in order to start to move your faith in that direction.
Yeah, there is power in the words there, saying it out loud. I also think your heart has to hear you saying it. It can't just exist in your heart. You just have to, like, all the things have to connect.
Yes.
And so, just what would you say was your idea of what New York City was like? What was the reality of what it was like when you got here?
You know what's funny? My idea and the reality kind of matched. So my
Ooh.
idea was everything I had seen in the movies. The taxi cab, the crowd, the noise, the sirens, the hustle. Those were all the things that I expected New York to be. And so my first step in kind of making that dream a reality was coming here for my 25th birthday. It was my very first time visiting New York. And when I got here with a group of girlfriends, I remember we were staying in New Jersey because we couldn't afford to stay in New York. And when we got off at Port Authority and I came out that station and I saw all of those massive billboards and all of the lights and the tag, I was like, this is exactly what I thought I was going to feel. Like I'm feeling exactly what I thought I was going to feel. And so the experience of living here honestly have been very close to what I thought. Now I've been able to do things that honestly I never could have dreamt in my wildest, biggest dreams. But New York City is New York City. What my niece said it today. She said, "What you see on TV is what it is."
Energy, everything. Let's talk about like creating Harlem's Fashion Row. Um, Kind of what was that took so many cliff jumps where you were having events, you're creating events and not knowing how you're going to pay for them. Like tell me about the creation of that dream and that idea and how it came about.
Yeah, I was at a fashion show in Brooklyn. And while I was there, I had a thought. I want to do this in Harlem. I was living in Harlem at the time. My friends and I were throwing like the hottest Harlem house parties. We used to call them HHHP. I was throwing Harlem brunches at the time. And so we were on the scene. And when I went to that show in Brooklyn, I don't know what it was about that particular event. It wasn't huge, it was at a small restaurant. But something about that event said, man, I've never been to anything like this in Harlem. And it started with that thought. And I started basically just writing out all of my ideas of what this would be. At the time, there were all of these boutiques that were popping up in Harlem. There was B.O. Yama, Montgomery, Pieces, Denim Library in Harlem. And they were all these really beautiful upscale ateliers, some of them boutiques, some of like it was just everyone was doing this really cool stuff around fashion in Harlem. And so I said, oh, that would be great to have all of those stores be a part of this. They were all Black owned stores. Some of them actually were designers as well. And they were designing some of the products that were in the store. And so I asked all of them to be a part of the event. But the way that I asked them was that I had a friend help me with like a really compelling letter. And I put that letter on like a green chartreuse paper. And I put that paper, I signed it, the letter, put it inside like this chocolate envelope. And then I wrote on it in gold. And so I knew, and then I tied the letter with a bow. So I put like a ribbon around it. So I knew that when they got that letter, they wouldn't just throw it away. It would be like, what is this? Who is it from? And so when I called them to follow up, I would say, I'm the one who sent you the letter in the, in the brown envelope. And then they would go, oh yeah. But that was my way of really, really standing out. And that was the very beginning of it. All of them actually told me no, except one.
Okay.
And so, I had to get beyond that though, because in my head, this had already happened. And that's what happens actually when you start speaking it, you literally start to believe that it's done. And it's hard for anyone to convince you that it's not. And so, the disappointments are going to come because somebody's going to say no. But if you go back to that original vision, you're like, no, but this has already happened.
Wow. So did you
Yeah.
do the event with just that one, or did you get other people?
No, eventually 4 out of the 5 said yes.
Oh, you just kept pitching.
I kept going back. I
How
kept
did you,
going back.
what was the convincing? Was it just like this, her persistence, her
It was
hustle?
it was every last one of them. If you talk to them now, they would say she would not stop coming to my store. Because my dad is probably the most persistent person I know and the most tenacious person I know. So I grew up seeing him handle no like it was no big deal. He was always in sales of some sort. And so
Mhm.
he never let a no razzle him. And now I don't have his tenacity, but no doesn't cause devastation for me. So I go back, hey, I told you I'm not going to do this. I don't want you to give me a yes. I just want you to say you're going to think about it. Will you just consider it? Just think about it. Guess what? I've got this person. They've said yes. They said, and then I give them all the good updates that were happening, right? Paint the
Mhm.
picture. And this is happening and that's happening. Just consider it. And then I'll come back, right? And so I remember the day that Pieces, Pieces, she's the owner of Greedy Vegan now,
Mm.
but she had one of the dopest boutiques in Brooklyn and in Harlem. And I kept going to her Harlem store, and her husband kept saying, I need to talk to my wife. I need to talk to my wife. And finally, we were in Brooklyn, something at Prospect Park, and I realized her boutique wasn't so far. So I walked to her boutique from there. And she said, you are not going to stop. Give me that paper, guys. Because they have to sign. I made them sign saying they would be a part of it. And so persistence really does pay off.
What was it like that night when it happened, when the
Oh
event
my
happened?
gosh. It was honestly, people always say, like, what's been your biggest accomplishment with HFR? And I always say the first show because that night was so enchanting. There was something so special in the air, and I felt like something special had been birthed, and everyone in the room was so happy and um, overjoyed. And there were so many challenges we had that day. But by the end of the night, oh my gosh, I have this picture of me that night and I'm walking on the runway. The guests are like gone and it's just me there. And I'm walking on the runway and it literally, there's nothing but sheer joy in my face
Mhm.
because when you actually have an idea and you execute that idea and you are actually standing in what was once a thought, there is no better feeling.
Yeah, and we know what Harlem's Fashion Row does now, but what does it mean to you? Like in that moment, what was the why of it all?
The interesting thing is that I didn't discover the purpose of HFR until 2008. I started in 2007.
Mm.
So it's like in the beginning, it was just passion. It was like, I want to do this. I want to see this in Harlem. I don't know why I'm so passionate about this thing, but I am. I couldn't have told you why I had to do it. I did not know. All I knew was that I kept saying to people, even the very first year before I ever did the event, when I was in the planning mode, I would say, this is so much bigger than me. I don't know what this is, but it's so much bigger than me. I would say it over and over because I knew that it was. Now, what it was going to be, I had no idea. And so, but it was something I was so passionate about. It wasn't until the second year when I was looking for Black designers in particular down department store websites that we shop every day. And I could only find 2 or 3 out of hundreds of designers that I got angry. And so that was a big problem for me. I was just like, this is insane. I'm missing something. Clearly, I don't know. I'm from Memphis. I'm an outsider.
Mm.
And the more I started to say, oh no, this is real. So I have this formula. I'm like, your purpose is usually right at the intersection of your passion and a problem. And that's exactly what happened with me. I was passionate about doing this event. This problem was that I wasn't finding Black designers. And there was my purpose that lied right there.
Wow. And so then just explain to people who've never heard of HFR, the events that you put on.
Yeah. So Harlem's Fashion Row is an agency as it stands today. We act as a bridge between Black and Latinx designers and brands and retailers. So we do that through really dope events that we host throughout the year. We have a big New York Fashion Week event. We're working on our 16th one right now. We're getting ready to announce some
Amazing.
dope things. We have a tech summit. We have a sustainability summit. We have a Black History Month summit, really all with the goal of either providing designers of color with the resources that they need or providing consumers with information about these incredible designers. So we do events, we do collaborations where we actually collaborate on a product. We've collaborated with Banana Republic and Harbison, where he did a whole collection with Nike and LeBron James on the first sneaker designed by women for women. We just did a collab with Jimmy Choo and Timberland last year on some dope boots. I hope y'all got them. So we do collabs. We also do pipeline programs with HBCUs and their fashion departments. And then we have a website where you can shop Black designers called HFR & Co. And we recently released a book, which I have right here, Fashion in Color, which is basically our love letter to Black designers. It's a great resource book to find out more about Black designers that you can shop.
Let me tell you, the Banana Republic collab, I follow you on Instagram and saw you talking about it and then went and bought two piece. I was like obsessed. And so my photo shoot for my own cliff jump is in one of those dresses, the puffy sleeve, like bright, like it's just like, it's my favorite dress that I own. I feel so pretty in it. And it all came from looking at your Instagram of saying like this, collection, and it's, Black designer. And I was like, this is all a win-win. And because you taught me over time, like, no, because you were saying that you want to flip your closet to where you had, mostly Black designers that you're wearing in your closet. And I'm like, wow, that's dope. Like, how do you even have, so it's just like me slowly getting my pieces together. Cause I was like, that's dope.
That's what we have to do, right? It's a slow process. So I tell people 90% of my closet is Black and Latinx designers, but that's over a decade. So you can say, I'm going to dedicate 5% of my closet to Black designers. And as you start buying stuff, make your little section. This is my fashion and color section over here, right? And then it starts to grow. And what you realize, the more that you wear it, I'm wearing a Jonathan Hayden dress today, but the more that you wear pieces from these designers, the more you're going to want to shop, because you're not just wearing a dress. I'm wearing his story. And his story is so beautiful. And so you get a chance to, honestly, you feel different when you're wearing designers of color. Every time I wear their pieces, I feel so proud.
Mm-hmm. No, it's great. And the color schemes like pop with my skin because I know I was in mind when it was being created, So no, I
Absolutely.
love that. All right. So kind of again, from the outside looking in, I just have a few things that I see as themes of how I've watched you. And that I just wanted you to expand on. So in terms of a cliff jump requires action. We've talked about that, how you've literally had to move, it requires physical movement. Another thing is that, so many people talk about what they don't have, but you see opportunity. What does it take to have that vision? Because it's like, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I've got to take care. I'm too old now. I've got responsibilities. Like, how do you see the vision of what's possible? Because you have to go against the status quo. You can't, how we were raised, perhaps, things that we may have been told as children. Like, you have to go against that. And you were talking about being kind of in your body of like, I just knew I had to do this. What did that take for you to listen to yourself? Because everybody's probably like, yeah, that's nice, but I mean, like,
You know what? If you wait until you have everything you need to take action, you'll never take action. I never have enough. Let me say that. One day I'm gonna have more than enough and an abundance of everything that I need. Let me watch my words. I always tell my daughter, watch your words. But most often through this journey, it was very rarely that I had everything I needed to take action. And I want to say this because it's not that you take action and you move towards the dream and you never have doubt, you never have disappointment, you never have moments where you question what you're doing. There are so many times after you've taken a cliff jump or your first one or your second one that you're going to want to turn back around. You're going to want to get under the covers. And I should say, I have wanted to get under the covers, put the blanket over my head and say, I was just kidding, everyone. That was a joke, and those periods, I have to call and lean on people that help me to renew my faith. It's so important that you have people around you that are cheerleaders that will cheer on your dream, because there are going to be many points that I had that point last year where I was like, I don't know how we're going to make it to next month. I'm not sure. And I remember praying about it and getting the answer, don't worry about next month, just get to the next day. And so often what's daunting for us is we're thinking about what's happening next month, what's happening weeks from now, how are we going to handle this thing at the end of the year, like all of those things. And sometimes it's like, no, what can you do today? What actions can you take today? What mindset can you adopt to get you through this day? And then tomorrow, we'll worry about that tomorrow. So I want to say that because when you see people taking a cliff jump and pursuing their dream, often it can look like, oh, everything is working out for them. But there are absolutely those moments when I doubt myself, when I feel like I've taken on too much. Who am I to be doing this? Like all the things that go through my mind that I have to find a way to renew my faith.
No, that's so good. Talk about the benefits of being an outsider.
So often people think that being an outsider, and when you're doing anything new in any industry, you're going to be an outsider. But it's such a gift because you're going to be totally underestimated, gift. You're going to be looked over, gift. You're going to be disregarded, a gift. Because all of those things allow you to make mistakes under the radar. So once you're not an outsider and you're an insider, that's why it's so hard for insiders to do things, right? Like most people who make stuff happen start out as outsiders because insiders feel all that pressure because they got a reputation to uphold. When you're an outsider, you don't have anything to uphold. And so you get this rare opportunity and it doesn't last for a long time. Like I still call myself an outsider, but I have lots of insider benefits at this point. So you get this finite amount of time. You don't know how long it's going to be. It could be 5 years that you're an outsider. For me, it was 10 years. And at some point you're going to be an insider and people are going to be looking at everything you do. But use that time when you're an outsider to try a bunch of things, to see what works, to, I say everything's in beta. Like that way you get to see like what works, what doesn't work. We started and quit so many things at HFR that nobody knows about. I mean, so many, I can't even tell you how many things we started and quit. Because guess what? It didn't work. Okay. We quit it. I'm not going to, but we were under the radar. So it didn't look like we were flaky. That time was a gift.
I never thought about it that way, but that you are absolutely, absolutely correct. Your ability to create partnerships is also unmatched. I think that sometimes folks, want to go it alone, or, but you are always putting your arm around somebody, bringing them in, partnering, leveraging that. Like, talk about that.
We can't do anything great by ourselves. We can't do anything great by ourselves. It's always, and I like to do big things. I don't like to do small things.
I'm so glad you said that. No, really, because I just like sometimes I just be like, Lord, can't I just be content with something else? You know what I mean? And so it's just like the extra pressure I put on myself, like what I want the product to look like. And I just cannot do it. I was like, I'm
It's
just so extra sometimes and I can't
And you
help it.
shouldn't. I mean, I was talking to, we had an Instagram live today talking about our new book, Fashion and Color. And I was showing her that we had done this book first. And we did the whole thing. And like, there's all these designers in here. And it just, I'll show you one, for example. This was like, April Walker in there.
Mhm.
And I got this book and I was supposed to press go and, put it out into the market. And I just couldn't. I just could not. It just, I couldn't. It wasn't what I had envisioned. It was good, but it wasn't great. And it wasn't, and I was like, we have to do this whole thing over. And the team was like, wait, what? and now that we've got this book, it's so beautiful. I'm so proud of it. The paintings are so beautiful. Like, I was trying to find that same paint, like April Walker, just so you could see like the difference, but in what that was and like what this
Oh
is,
yeah, that
it's
is
like
very
night and
different.
day. And so I like to do big things, and my faith plays a big part in what I do, and I feel like God doesn't do anything small. He does it big. So I'm his child. So guess what? I have the right to do it big too. And I don't know if I even answered your question.
No, you did, and I just feel so because I that's something that I've just been thinking about for myself of just like because I was a local news reporter for a very long time, and then last year I just was like I need to. There are just so many more things that I love to do, and this is stifling me at this point. Like I've learned everything I can learn here, and I can't grow the way I need to grow and have agency the way I need to. So then I stepped out on my own, right? Like I just stepped out on my own. I said, okay, I've done enough. I've worked hard enough that I'm going to figure it out. And I've figured it out, but it's hard. It's like really
It's not
hard.
easy. That is why I know what you asked me. That is why I always try to collaborate. So it's always, where does it make sense to collaborate, right? It doesn't always make sense. I don't force collaborations, but we try to work with brands so that we can do something big together, right? Like, we try to work with the HBCU departments so we can do something big together. So when we're thinking about, okay, we're going to do this podcast, we're going to launch a podcast soon, right? I'm thinking about, well, who do we partner with? Can we partner with Spotify? Can we partner with Amazon? Can we like, who are the players in the space that we can launch this with versus doing it on our own? Now, it's quite possible that they're going to say no, but I'm going to at least ask and put the proposal out there.
Right. Yeah.
And so sometimes we don't get some of the things that we want because we don't ask, right? And then you have to have the presentation, the idea built out so that it's easy for people to say yes.
To see
Like,
the vision.
make it easy for people to say yes.
Yeah. No, that's great. And how are you meeting these people to even for them to take your call or to check your email? How are you going out and meeting them?
I email CEOs. I got a string of emails to CEOs I'm sending out this week. I email CEOs who a lot of times the CEO may not answer me, but they'll put me in touch with the right person. I ask people, hey, I want to work with this brand. Does anybody know someone at that brand? I connect with people on LinkedIn all the time. Sometimes I just say it like, we want to work with this brand. And then I just keep saying it every time. Do you know anybody at Google Pixel? By the way, I'm looking for a contact at Google Pixel. So I'm like, who is the person? And then the more I just keep talking about it, somebody goes, you know what? I know, and so I think intention is really powerful. But I definitely email CEOs and I connect with people on LinkedIn as well.
And before you were Brandice Daniel of HFR, like before you had all of this proof of performance connected to your name, was it still the same strategy, just maybe not the CEO, somebody else, or was it still the CEO and it was your persistence that paid off?
So I would just find somebody at a brand. I would go out to events a lot. I would meet people. I would tell people what I was doing often. In the very beginning, I would host brunches and dinners and lunches that I would fund myself for my full-time job, where I would invite really influential people who I didn't know and have them come to the room, but I would do it in play. I would always say, people will say no to Brandice because they don't know me. They would say no to HFR because they don't know HFR, but they won't say no to Bergdorf Goodman. So if I could do a nice lunch at Bergdorf Goodman, and that was my strategy. I would
So
do these
good.
events in places that were undeniable. Like they had to stop and go, wait, who's doing a lunch at MoMA? And it may cost me a few $1,000s, but I lived so little in the beginning so that I could use that money to be able to fund things like dinners or breakfasts or something that would allow me to get people into a room and share my vision, and then automatically those people would connect me to other people.
Oh, that's so good. That is so, so, so good. That is definitely an idea I'm keeping with me 100%. That's so good. And the last thing that you've talked about a few times is passing it on and this HBCU legacy. So it's not as hard of a climb, as hard of a road for up and coming designers who aren't already at Parsons or, the Fashion Institute and things of that nature.
Yeah,
How does that
absolutely.
feel to you're sharing your story, which is so tangible to them, right? And giving them a platform to have their retreats and things of that nature.
I went into an HBCU fashion department in 2014 or 15, and it was a large HBCU school. I walked into the department, they had two working sewing machines and maybe one mannequin. The rest of the mannequins were broken. And I made myself a promise that I was going to do something to help change that. And that I thought it was insane that this fashion department at this esteemed HBCU has so few resources. And I thought, if they have these few resources at this school, imagine what the other schools are dealing with. And so that's a part of my personal mission. It's also a part of HFR and Icon 360, which is our nonprofit. So we've been able to give $1.2 million away thanks to so many great partners. Again, I couldn't do that. I don't have $1.2 million. But, I shared my vision with the brand. I told them that story. I told them that I wanted to transform these departments, and they said, we want to help. And how can we help? And so, it's something special about, and Icon 360 was very young. It was barely 1 year old, but it's something about when you share your vision and your why for doing something with people want to get on board with that. Like, that wasn't about me. That was about these departments and these students and these HBCU professors that work their butts off every single day to try to create these opportunities for the students. And so, you know, that is absolutely a personal promise that I made myself back in 2014 and 15, and so grateful that we've been
Yeah.
able to have so much help and support. But
That
it took a long time. Like we weren't really able to do anything impactful until 2020.
mhm. Yeah, and then brands were opened up to it too,
Yeah,
of wanting to help, and you were already there, already established, so you could be a conduit because you already had the context and had been doing
yeah.
the work already. So my last segment is called Act Up, ACT. Those are my initials. So people have listened to this whole thing, but they're still like, okay, I know I need a cliff jump. What is the first step? What should they do today to
Well, the
get them
first
to the
thing they
cliff?
should do is go to my website, brandicedaniel.com, and take the cliff jump course. That's the first thing they should do. Because I really do walk you through all of the steps that you need. And I've been doing this course for 10 years. I just made it available publicly. But I've worked with Carmian from HGTV before she went into interior design full time. I've worked with so many people.
Mhm.
So that is available. But I think you have to make a decision first. What is it that you want to do and why do you want to do it? And you don't need to have, like I said, I didn't have my purpose in the beginning. All I knew was I want to do a fashion show in Harlem. And I want to do this because it is an idea I cannot stop thinking of. That was literally my why, if you asked me at the time. So what is it that you want to do and why do you want to do it? And then what is the first step you can take? So if the first step for me when I did that was, well, let me choose a date. Let me find a date, because a lot of times we say we want to do something and even we have action towards it, but we've not given ourselves a deadline. And what happens when you don't give yourself a deadline is that thing moves a million times.
Mhm.
You 2 years in and you're still writing that book. Like you forget 2 years, you're 10 years in and you're
Yeah.
still writing that book. 10 years in and you're still talking about this thing that you want to do, and you've been taking step towards it, but you've not created a deadline for it. Like the thing needs to happen. Babies have a due date. They don't stay in their mother's wombs
Mm.
for years. There's a
Ugh,
due date. And so
babies.
what's your due date?
Babies have a due date. Yes. Yes. Babies have a due date. Oh, yeah. No, that's so good. And the last thing, what is it like for you to see your work in action? Like to see where we are right now. I could have never imagined the fashion industry, like with Fee Noel, like with, you know what I mean? Just all of these major collaborations, people you've seen from before anybody knew their name. Like you all have come up and worked together in the partnerships. What is that like for you?
I don't know if I ever take a step back and look at it. However, I will tell you that I'm so excited about what I see in the industry right now. It's not even about the big brands who are partnering with designers or what they're doing or what they're not doing. It's about us, because we are creating collections and brands at the highest level now. The quality is amazing. The shipping is amazing. I'm big on packaging. The packaging is incredible. The experience is great. And I've not seen the amount of designers who are doing this at such a high level, and never in the 16 years I've been doing HFR. We are living in a really, really special time. And what's even better is that we are supporting each other.
Mm-hmm.
When I see people with the Brendan Blackwood bag, with their Fee Noel outfit, I'm like, I see you in your thesis, or a Hanifa dress, or, like these, it just did not exist a few years ago. And so all of us, the people listening to the podcast, all of us, we're out there shopping Black designers. And it's beautiful. That's what I love more than anything about right now.
Yeah. Oh, Brandice, thank you so much for this. Let me tell you, I have been watching you from afar for years. I went to the Great Girlfriends Conference once, and then I went to the HFR Sustainability Summit. And it's just, you have been like my mentor from afar. And I tried to do this type of thing a few years ago, and you were on my wish list, and I reached out, but it wasn't right. Like who I was working with was not right. And so I'm so glad this happened because I was like, again, it was a thing for me that I was like, I just have to, these are the conversations that I want to have. And then when you're like, yes, I could do it, I was like, ah.
Oh, thank
Because it
you.
was just like, I'm in a different place. And I was just like, oh, it's just confirmation for me on my cliff jump that I'm on the right path. So thank you for just being such an amazing example. It's just been a joy, and you've taught me so much.
Oh, thank you so much. It's not easy, Andrea. Don't try to do this by yourself. Find entrepreneurial friends who can you can bounce things off of, who you can be painfully honest with, because the journey, honestly, there's always going to be highs and there's going to be lows. And you need people who are going to be with you during your highs, but you also need people who you can call with your lows, and let them know exactly what's going on. Ask them for ideas because there's always a solution, always.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need people around you who will help you with the solution. Um, Starting something from scratch, being a founder, being an entrepreneur cannot be a solo journey. You have to do
At
this in
all.
community. You
You
got to do
have
it in
to.
community. If you want to keep your sanity, do it in community.